The Sargent Service Learning Program offers students a unique and exciting opportunity to participate in faculty-led service learning experiences which promote health education, empower communities, and cultivate educated, passionate global citizens. Over the past 5 years, 78 students have traveled with faculty to 4 countries where they have had life-changing experiences. These service learning experiences have been coordinated by Ms. Shelley Brown and Ms. Anna Monahan. In the Department of Health Sciences, Ms. Brown is a clinical assistant professor and Ms. Monahan is a lecturer, and they co-direct the Sargent College Service Learning Program. Please welcome them as they're here to tell us more about this unique and exciting program.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. My name is Shelley Brown, and my colleague and I are very excited to talk to you this morning about our service learning program.
My name is Anna Monahan, and we'd like to start off by showing you the Belize video. From the beginning, Shelley and I had talked about attaining a level of cultural competency and how do you turn out culturally competent healthcare providers. That's just a subject matter that we've both been really interested in. And does that training actually translate into the real world? And the studies that we've seen support that. But we wanted to find something that was service learning oriented, something that kids could just immerse themselves in another culture, just really get to do things that they weren't able to do back in the States. We actually sought out Belize just because it was English speaking, it was something that was accessible to all of our students, and they also had a healthcare program here. And they communicated to us that diabetes was, the leading killer of Belizeans for the past 5 years, so we focused on that initiative to go into schools and educate people, but then we've discovered that there's just so much more. Knowing what I know now, I feel like the gift of cultural immersion and going to a third world country, I feel like it's all about the unpredictability.
We actually had a set clinic planned for the afternoon with the students, and because the head nurse was called away on an emergency, this wonderful moment came out of it where our students were able to go into the homes because their clinic in the afternoon was canceled, but they still had a list of patients that were really high priority that they couldn't tend to.
That was really eye-opening for me. You kind of see it and you're like, oh my God, but then once you get into the homes, that really kind of, grounded me and made me realize that, wow, we really are in a place that does need help.
In addition to that, we did not intend to test the teachers. A few teachers had asked to be tested. There was an impromptu clinic set up in one of the classrooms, which was a beautiful moment. I think a lot of students are really struggling with the fact that the healthcare is paid for in Belize. And actually some of the patients they're seeing with these high levels of 400, 500, 600 blood sugar levels, which we would just think is, again, an emergency situation in the US, they're really struggling to understand why these patients then aren't, immediately going to the clinic.
And it's crazy that they're not symptomatic with these numbers. So is there a different strain of diabetes here for them? Is it just some cultural, genetic form of diabetes? I think that needs to be explored.
And maybe at some point in the future, could there be certain interventions that our students could play a huge role in? And that's just so exciting because nobody else is doing it here right now. And I think we've seen a lot of growth from the beginning. One particular student that had never been out of the country, working just so well and beautifully with all these different cultures that came in, from Mayan and Quechan and all these different Griffina people coming in, and here she is just easily conversing with them and testing them for diabetes and providing them specific counseling, and it was just a beautiful moment to watch.
It makes me realize that my passion really is in healthcare and helping people, and it really is involving not just showing someone how to do things, but teaching them.
Sargent College has a strong emphasis on service learning. We operate on the definition that service learning is any experience in which academic, teaching, and learning is used to address real community needs through action, research, or work in collaboration between an educational institution and a community partner organization. An essential component of service learning is that all participants benefit. Service learning may or may not be linked to an academic course and is separate from those experiences necessary for learning a discipline, as you were able to see in the video on Belize. We established this program in 2011 and are excited that we've brought 78 students to 4 different countries and had 4 different faculty participants to date. One of the cornerstones of this program is that participants are exclusively from Sargent programs, which gives them a unique opportunity to work together in ways they are not able to in the classroom. And something that started a few years ago were scholarships, and that's thanks to the generous support of our alumni and the BU community. And we're excited to continue offering scholarships as the program grows.
The significance of having a program like this is the connection to the classroom. It really helps the students apply theory learned in the classroom to the real world. Next is the interprofessional education. This is the first time our students get to work together and see what each other does from different disciplines in Sargent College and work with professionals out in the real world. Next, professional development. It actually gives them the opportunity to experience their profession in the real world and work with professions, not just from their discipline, but in a public health setting. And lastly, this is the first activity that they actually get to participate with sergeant majors and sergeant faculty members. So our most recent trip is Peru, and now I'm happy to present the Peru video to you.
We're here in Peru for BU Sargent Service Learning, which is an interdisciplinary program of Sargent College. So we have a representation from every single discipline to learn about traditional medicine and practices, hopefully to bring that back to the United States and their respective disciplines, but even deeper than that, to form bonds and really be able to draw from each other in the future.
A real important part of these 2 weeks is to get that education about healthcare in a different world and a different culture.
And we got to see multiple hospitals, public, private. We got to see the difference in Western medicine and homeopathic medicine.
This whole trip to us, it's back to the basics. It's back to traditional medicine. If you're treating somebody who does have a traditional belief system and you're completely discounting that belief system, they're not going to have trust in you.
We got to see some of the different plants that go into making essential oils, and it could be from helping you with altitude to helping you with like allergies.
And this is really the first line of defense for any illness, especially in these more rural areas. And I think the students are really starting to think and asking really good, deep questions about how they can better understand what's happening here and really take that back into their own practice.
People are always trying to just get better, get better, get better, and I feel like they always think that getting better is about inventing new things, whereas getting better sometimes might just be holding on to things that have worked in the past as well.
We're in Moscow right now, and it's a kind of an area about 100 different families live here. This family's goal is to be completely self-sustainable and completely organic. It's amazing to see how much work goes into keeping up just this location.
I think this is the most meaningful part of the trip here because we're meeting with an actual family and we're hearing their stories and we're getting to know their daily life.
They really have this idea about bringing the whole community together in an organic manner to get away from the unnecessary chemicals and things that modern society has brought about and just getting back to the basics and living as healthily as they can off of what Pachamama has given them, or Mother Earth.
Los incas diferenciaron plantas que nos puede curar, ¿no? Podemos utilizar las flores de las plantas, sus proteínas para la curación están en las flores, algunas en las hojas, algunas en los tallos, algunos en las cortezas de los tallos y algunas plantas se usan las raíces.
These traditional medicines are getting passed down from family to family, and it's just off the top of their heads. And it's really interesting to see what we're not tapping into, what we're not able to know about in our classrooms.
This trip has been amazing in its mixture of studying and of volunteering and of touring. Here we're learning not just about herbal remedies and not just about agriculture, but also a little bit about the government and its relationship with its citizens. Coming to Peru and being in the country itself and meeting the people here has been an unbelievable opportunity.
We're fortunate to have a number of students that participated in the Peru Service Learning experience this summer joining us today. We've asked them to join us to reflect on some of their experiences, and we'll let them introduce themselves.
Jay Petruno, and I'm in the dietetics program.
Alessa Mohammedzadeh, Human Phys.
Erica Saito, Health Sciences.
Tyler Hinton, Health Sciences.
Shoko Akabe, Physical Therapy.
And I'd like to start by asking them a question on the most important lesson they learned while they participated in the Peru Service Learning trip. Jay?
I think that the most impactful thing you get when you walk into a clinic is the interaction you see between a clinician and a patient. And in Peru, it was almost mind-blowing to see how mindful but also how respectful they were to their patients. They cared more about their comfort and their happiness than they really did about the money, than they did about anything on like the receiving end for the clinician. And it just shows you that the best lesson you can go into healthcare with is knowing that it's about the patient, it's not about yourself, and it's not about the takeaway. It's about knowing you're making a difference in the world and helping those who need it.
Totally agree. Also, one of the most important lessons that we went over as a group through activities was privilege. We talked about the privilege of the United States versus Peru and a number of other countries. And we found that in Peru, they might not be as privileged as us, but with the resources they have, they really use it and distribute it in a way that they do it essentially in the best of their abilities. And so one of the things that happened was we went to a clinic outside of Cusco, and they had a beautiful facility set up with beds, hospital beds, technology that was sufficient, but they didn't have the staff. They didn't have doctors that could stay overnight. They didn't have nurses that could stay overnight, so essentially they had empty beds. And it was sad to see that go to waste.
Tyler?
One thing that I learned about myself on this trip was definitely there's no room for reservations in healthcare. If a patient needs something and it's an emergency, you have to do it. You have to cater to their beliefs, their system of operation in the country, and also respect the culture.
Next question. What values, opinions, beliefs have changed as a result of this trip? Shoko?
Probably the biggest thing that changed, the biggest change I had is how I viewed volunteering. And we learned that not all volunteering is necessarily good, especially if you're going into a different country and you're trying to help them out, you're giving them a lot of donations. You have to think about what they actually need. It's not about what you think they need, because you don't know their culture, you don't know, like, if they don't feel that they need something and you're just giving it to them, it's just going to build up medical waste, and that just ends up going into a medical graveyard, and eventually that's just causing them more harm than good. And if they don't know how to use the things you're giving them, if you're not educating them, they could use it incorrectly, or they could just not use it completely. And if you're going in, like if someone were to come into your country and to give you all these things that they thought you needed, but you didn't feel that you needed, you feel like, this isn't helping me, I don't know why they're doing this. And also to not go into a country and take away jobs that they can do themselves, because they have to be self-sustainable too. And I think the point of volunteering is really to help them reach that point.
Erica?
So one of my friends actually just recently went to Costa Rica. I just want to tap off of Shoko, and she was there to help sea turtles. But what happened was there was 2 workers that would go out to the beach, and these 2 volunteers would go with them, and they didn't need the 2 volunteers. So it was interesting to see that these resources of people, time, money could be better spent in other places that actually, if we listen to them, we could give them better help and actually give back to the communities and volunteer in a way that would impact that society.
Tyler?
One of the definition or terms that we learned on the trip was a medical graveyard, and that's what happens when unused medical equipment piles up in a place that we assume needs it, but we don't offer any type of explanation about how to use the equipment, or we don't have the actual approval of the community for the equipment we're sending. So it basically ends up being unused, and there could be better well spent the resources.
So we all know we faced a lot of challenges on this trip. We have a lot of funny stories and great experiences, but I just wondered how you felt this trip challenged you in different ways. And we can start with Alyssa.
Well, my greatest challenge was definitely physical. We all climbed Machu Picchu, but only me, Shoko, and another girl, Kim, climbed to Montana Mountain, which is significantly higher. And Shoko and Kim are more experienced hikers than I am, so it was definitely very difficult for me. But there were multiple times where I was just like, okay, I can stop here and just wait for them to come back down.
but I pushed myself, and I'm so glad I did, because the view from the top is just so beautiful and breathtaking, and I'll probably never be there again. I'm just so glad that I did that, and I relate that back to my life here when I feel like I should give up or just stop pursuing something because it's difficult. I just have to push myself because the outcome is just so rewarding, and I'm just so glad I did that.
Great. Erica?
So, sorry. What was it? Oh, the hardest challenge was when I actually came back to the States. I found myself telling everyone, the stories about going to a maternity ward. And what happened was people got so caught up in the details of what it looked like, how were they getting treated, what were the people like there, rather than taking my point of view and saying, with the resources they have, they really did a lot with what they had. And it was kind of shocking to see people coming back to the United States only saying, wow, they're a developing country and that's what it is. I found myself frustrated. I wanted to tell them, you have to look at a different point of view, you have to look at it in a different way, but it was a play between should I or shouldn't. And I felt like I should, but it was difficult to actually pursue that. Yeah.
And I think going with that, when you do a trip like this, you learn so much and you see so much, and it makes you want to go out and change the world and do all this stuff in a short amount of time, and you get this conflict within yourself that you can or can't do it as one person. Like, how can one person make this difference and fix all the problems that you're seeing? And one of the things that you really have to come to terms with that can be really challenging is one person can make a difference, but it's the baby steps and even the indirect services that you can provide to the world that make someone else's job easier so that they can perform at an even more proficient level does make a difference. And it's the small things that count, but that initial, I work in a program at Boston University for first-year students doing community service, and the first thing the freshmen always say is, I want to change the world and I don't know how. And it's really important to know that the challenge is you might not know how, but the best way to do it is to take those baby steps and to not give up, because you definitely can.
Okay, the next question is, we've heard a lot about how, we could change the world, but how has this trip changed you? So we can start off with Jay. What have you learned about yourself as a result of Peru?
Well, I learned that I don't have to wash my hair every day, which actually is pretty healthy. But besides that, on a serious note, I learned, similar to what Alyssa was saying about the physical demand of just climbing mountains and all the hiking we had to do, there's a lot of information thrown at you, and it can be mentally exhausting to just process it all. It can be emotionally taxing to witness some of the things you have to witness and just come to the realities that there are like inequalities in the world and the physical demand in itself. So you learn to really push yourself to the limits. And in a profession like healthcare, it's important to know that you're going to go to the end of the earth and you can't stand in your own way because you can do it. It's the end goal that matters, and you can accomplish anything as long as you don't give up. So I definitely relearned how strong I actually am in the world.
Excellent. What about you, Alyssa?
I learned that I have this great passion for global health. Right now, my major is still human phys, and I wanted to go into medicine, become a doctor, but I just want to take a different path and go into health science and global health, take more trips like this, and just make it my career, just to help people how we've learned.
Going off of that, I'm speaking for Leila, who is also on this trip. She mentioned when we were kind of sitting down together that she doesn't want to go back to the United States and work here. She can't, because this trip impacted her so much that she wants to go back to a developing country and work there, because she can't sit in a hospital looking at all the great technology that we have and know that there's other people in the world that need more care.
So Alyssa and Erica have talked a little bit about how this has shaped them personally and also as a healthcare professional, and we'd like to hear from the rest of you and how you think this experience impacts you as a healthcare professional. Has it changed your path? Are you kind of re-envisioning what the future might look like based on this experience, in addition to your other experiences here at Sargent College?
So this past summer, a month after I came home from Peru, I went on my first full-time clinical affiliation in outpatient orthopedic in New Jersey. And I think the biggest change for me, how it impacted me, was being more culturally sensitive and realizing how different other cultures are, and that I may not know, may not always be aware, but to always be conscious of it. And to, if I make a mistake, to apologize, to always accommodate to make sure the patient's comfortable so that they come back for treatment.
Tyler?
I agree. I feel like cultural respect and sensitivity is like the main aspect of this trip, and to carry on to our own practices, and just being aware that just because something's different or something's new to you doesn't mean that it couldn't happen, I guess, is to like incorporate Western and traditional medicine and have the respect that just for their culture.
I agree with that. As a healthcare professional later on, I'd like to incorporate both traditional and Western medicines. I think it's a great way to gain trust between the patient, because in Peru we found that most communities, or some communities, wanted to try traditional medicines before they actually went into the hospitals for Western medicine. And some of them weren't allowed to. But those traditions have been there for hundreds of years, and I think it's something that we need to incorporate more into our modern healthcare system.
And I guess rolling along the same lines as that, being a nutrition major and studying dietetics, I've always been fascinated by food, and I'm kind of obsessed with eating. So the idea that money doesn't have to impact the amount of healthcare that you can get and how you can treat yourself, that there's natural resources you can take advantage of, and there's things around you that we overlook or take for granted that really can have a larger impact than just going and waiting in line and then going to a professional to tell you something that you probably already knew in the first place. That's the homeopathic medicines and remedies that we learned about really inspired me and got me really excited to learn more about how food is more just weight and fitness. You know, what you eat and what you can consume can really impact your overall health completely.
Thank you, Jay. Any other concluding remarks on your experience in Peru?
I loved it, and I'll definitely go back.
Wonderful.
If there's another service trip, I would
Yeah,
definitely
you count me in.
Service
learning.
Great. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I want to thank our panel for sharing their time with us today during a busy semester, and to thank all of you for joining us this morning. We're really pleased to share our experiences. It's enriched our lives as faculty, and you heard some of the student experiences among the 78 students that have joined us on service learning. So thank you very much.